last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. A new government survey reveals that 1 in 10 kids in the USA have been diagnosed with ADHD. In Arizona, the child protective industry is under fire for failing to protect a kid who died. In Florida, a TV station investigates and shows the failures of the state's new drug testing for welfare benefits program, while at the same time doping kids up in juvenile detention facilities. And due to the failures in the Casey Anthony trial, the Florida State Senate creates a new select committee to determine if the state's child protection laws are adequate. In Oakland, California, the city pledges to do something about teen prostitution, citing the fact that 55% of these girls come out of the foster care system. In Illinois, a judge rules against Catholic charities effectively choosing gays over Christians as foster and adoptive parents. The Indiana Supreme Court clarifies the rules for CPS agents in regards to the snatching and placing of children into foster care. And the governor of Kansas cuts funding for sick and dying infants. A report from the Annie Casey Foundation finds that Mississippi is the worst state in the USA in regards to the welfare of children, citing 10 indicators including undernourished infants, infant mortalities, and teen births. Kentucky, which comes in as the 41st best state in the country for child welfare, is now being sued by the state's two largest newspapers for withholding public records in regards to the deaths of abused and neglected children. And kids aged 10 and younger routinely face criminal charges in the state of Kentucky. In Maine this week, 3 new grassroots websites pop up asking for stories and demanding transparency from the state's secretive Gestapo of a child welfare system. Maine's governor signs a declaration to investigate and stop the abuse of Wabanaki Indian children in foster care. And an ex-prosecutor for the state attorney general's office who was found guilty of possession of child porn is granted bail pending appeal. In Michigan this week, a state audit finds millions in questionable purchases by the state welfare department. The makers of the drug Risperdal are facing billions of dollars in lawsuits for fraudulent marketing practices towards children, and the mother who lost her kid for refusing to give her daughter the drug loses her full parental rights. In Missouri, a school is being sued for not reporting sexual abuse of one student by another. In Nebraska, family advocates meet with government officials to discuss the rights of parents and children who get tangled up in the child welfare system. In New York, the governor signs a new law making those who work at summer camps mandated reporters of child abuse. And CPS agents in New York City are snatching kids after their parents are arrested for minor marijuana infractions. In Oklahoma, a county prosecutor is criticizing CPS agents regarding the death of a 5-year-old girl who was returned to her father. The state of Rhode Island spends millions every year shipping foster kids to out-of-state placement homes. And a Rhode Island congressman wants the states to do more to protect foster kids from identity theft. In Fiji this week, the government finally decides to ensure that children are placed with suitable adoptive parents. In South Africa, the child protective industry snatches and institutionalizes the children of homeless mothers from Zimbabwe. The Health Service Executive of Ireland is criticized over their foster care system. And 94% of parents in Ghana, Africa, endorse spanking as an acceptable discipline method for children. In Pakistan, the High Court orders the Social Welfare Department to take custody of all of the street children, thus effectively and immediately dropping 32,500 kids into their laps. The Philippine Social Welfare Department tries to stop pregnant women from being sent overseas to give birth and sell the babies to waiting adoptive parents. And the Guatemalan court upsets the American foreign adoption community by ordering a stolen child returned to her real mother in a child trafficking case. In Australia this week, a 15-year-old who is under 24-hour supervision by the Department of Child Protection manages to sneak off and rape an 8-year-old boy. The New South Wales Foster Care Agency admits to putting children into harm's way, and an Australian shrink is forced to abort a controversial trial which included the testing of antipsychotic drugs on teenagers. In Canada, a community is afraid of the young offenders who are moving into a group home in their neighborhood. A former foster parent is arrested in a sexual abuse case from 1969 that happened at a boys' ranch he once ran, and hundreds of foster kids are still at risk of harm in Saskatchewan, as the child protective industry continues to pack them into overcrowded foster homes that have been compared to puppy mills. In England this week, the British Home Secretary is threatening to publicly name and shame juveniles found guilty in the government-caused riots. The British are pissed over the child protective industry's decision to send a little girl to live in the United States with an unrelated stepfather who she barely knows. British social workers finally returned 2 kids after 18 months, who they stole when fraudulently confusing a child with brittle bone disease as a victim of child abuse. And a pregnant woman finds out that her unborn baby was still alive 2 weeks after being told that she had suffered a miscarriage. The Hull Seattle City Council is being criticized over the way the child protective industry responds to child abuse complaints, and an adoptee who discovers that her real family was looking for her chooses her real mom after being told to pick and choose by the adoptive parents. In entertainment news this week, John Gosling is relieved that Kate Plus 8 was canceled so that the kids can finally have somewhat of a normal life. An Alaskan woman who appeared on the Dr. Phil show goes to court after being accused of child abuse for making her 7-year-old adopted son drink hot sauce. And Oksana the Gold Digger is demanding that Mel Gibson pay her $500,000 in damages, claiming that the actor traumatized her 14-year-old son. In Virginia this week, a CPS agent is facing drug and gun charges. In Oklahoma, lawyers are trying to exonerate a cop who stands accused of molesting foster kids in his care. A Florida woman is charged with making false reports to the child abuse hotline against her ex-husband in a child custody case. And one foster parent from Arizona is busted for molesting a 10-year-old in his care. Another foster father from Georgia is charged with molesting a girl in his care. A third foster father from Kentucky is charged with molesting his foster son. And 2 former foster parents of the year from Toledo, Ohio are charged with criminally abusing a girl with cerebral palsy who they adopted. In New York, a mother and daughter reunite 34 years after an adoption scam. In California, a Facebook page reunites an 80-year-old mother and the baby she was forced to give up for adoption when she was 17. In Delaware, a judge refuses to dismiss a lawsuit where a whistleblower is retaliated against for reporting patient abuse at the state-run psychiatric hospital. And finally, tonight, an Ohio couple loses their daycare license after getting caught spanking their own kid. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.